All right, we're back, and clearly not with Steve, my normal co-host on the show here. We got Leon, who was kind enough to join the show. Um, I think Leon, I pinged you probably like yesterday, maybe the day before, to join the show, and you were uh, quick to join. So really appreciate it.
No, totally. I watched a few episodes and I really liked the conversation and also just kind of like going through. I enjoy a good podcast. So if I can add some content to the internet, I was happy to do it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Well, cool. Maybe just to start, we got a couple different topics that we were chatting about before hitting record here. For anybody listening, maybe just give like a little brief background, like who you are, what you do, and what kind of led you to your agency, and maybe just like a general kind of overview of the agency, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Okay, totally. Let me start back when I was essentially in high school. So that was, roughly 10, 12 years ago. I'm gonna be 30 soon.
What
I
area
was
are you
doing
from?
I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Grew up
Oh,
there,
nice,
and
nice.
I've moved a little bit out. Frequent Austin, frequent San Antonio, but grew up in Texas almost my whole life. But in high school, I started tech blogging. I realized I really like technology. The cell phones. I was just in that era of all of the kind of cool stuff coming out. Gadgets were starting to hit, so I started a tech blog called Digital Bounds, and I started blogging. That was through high school, and some people were
Nice.
doubtful of it, but I kept at it. And when I went to college, college didn't quite pan out, but I kept tech blogging. So I went to go write for Android Authority and their sister sites. I did some writing for the Next Web, and then I did some little bit of guest posting on Engadget. But along the way, I just realized writing one is a really hard profession to do. It's not paid well, and while respected, it's nothing where you can say, "Hey, I'm a writer and I'm a tech blogger." It was that time of 2013 to 2016 that people were like, "Tech blogger, okay, you're part of the problem to journalism." But every single agency was, or sorry, every single publication was talking about SEO. They were saying, "Hey, we need to optimize this. We need to hit these keywords." So I started picking up these skills, and while I was running the blog and I was talking about social media, I was talking about SEO. Um, I was working nights at a grocery store trying to make ends meet while I was writing, and I met somebody that said, "Hey, you should go do a marketing agency. Somebody's starting it here in San Antonio. They need some social media. They need some SEO. Why don't you go do that?" And that's what inevitably changed my career and put me on the path of agency life.
Wild.
Um, Worked there for about 4 to 5 years, pretty much full time, contractor status, full time employee, went back contractor for a little while. And that was DigiBoost. And along the way, I met this gentleman named Joshua Ruskin, and he was running a white label agency. He was doing some stuff. He was in the Philippines, living there, hiring internationally. I kind of thought what he was doing was pretty cool, and we stayed in contact and started doing some like side work and investments together, trying to buy houses, trying to do things, and figure out our investment strategy to not always be selling our time. And at some point, he was like, "Hey, I need a partner, and I need somebody to kind of help me do the books, do some of this other stuff. Can you come on?" And then over time, past like 3 4 years, I bought into the business, and I keep buying more into the business. And now we've got what is Ruskin Consulting, what primarily does white label marketing. So we work with marketing agencies trying to do Google Ads, SEO, do a little bit of web work, but overall, just servicing other agencies and talking to them about the problems and woes that they have, and then trying to be their back end partner um, along the way. But that's kind of the journey that's taken me to today. So about 10 years worth of effort.
That's so cool. I got a couple questions there. Before those, so Ruskin Consulting, what's kind of like the general makeup here? Like how many team members you guys got? What types of clients you working with? I
Yeah.
know we were chatting before, obviously like some SEO and paid work, but just kind of general overview, size of agency, types of clients and industries you guys work with there.
Yeah. So, revenue size, I'm happy to share. We're about 600K to 700K in revenue a year, just for that side of the business. We service mainly agencies, and those agencies range from servicing like the SMBs where, they've got 1, 2, employees. And then we also service the agencies that I think some of them have 10, 15, and they're
Yep.
servicing B2B clients. They've got hospitals, medical devices. So really run the gamut in terms of what end client we get, but almost always a core part of it is we've got an agency owner or an agency, um, you know, employee in front of us saying, "Hey, this is the help and the support we need." Um, Size of the business right now, it's myself, my business partner. We've got two American contractors that we use. One's here actually in San Antonio, the other one's in San Diego. And then we've got one person that's in the UK that does e-commerce for us, small portion of business that I don't quite grasp as well. So we brought her in. And
Yep.
then we've got about 15 folks in the Philippines and in Latin America, mainly Colombia.
Super cool. Very nice. Very nice. I love the white labeling component of the business there as well.
That
Was
I
that like
wish
a
I could take
conscious
credit for that.
decision? Yeah. Like
No, not
what
at
led to
all.
that?
So my business partner wanted to do marketing, and he knew when he was building, like some of his businesses back in the day, he was like, man, nobody's doing Google Ads well. Nobody's building us websites well. And that was like 2008. And he was like, I'm going to do my own marketing agency. And he started working with some, local businesses. And he quickly realized, man, getting leads is a hard thing. So he was like, hey, I'm going to go talk to people that just bring me leads. And that's the laziness in his mind of like the ingenious lazy person, where he was like, I want somebody to bring me all these leads, and I want to service them, I want to work hard for them, but I don't want to have to go out and talk to a new person every single day to try to get work. And that's where he's been at. And we've kept growing it, and he went a little bit here and there with some small sets of customers where they're direct, but overall the agencies has always been the 80% of the business, 20%, some small SMB here and there, referral basis.
It's so, I think that's so smart. And Steve and I did an episode on just like how to generate business as an agency owner. Cause I think that's one of the most attractive things is like, hey, you could run an agency and somebody could pay you $1,000 a month to like manage ads, or $5,000, like whatever the retainer is. But then it's like, all right, how do you like go about getting clients? And one of the reasons why Steve and I started this podcast is, to generate clips, honestly, for social. So like this is a great way to film a 45-minute to an hour episode, and then you can obviously get some clips, use it for social. I've generated a ton of business that way, of just being, top of mind for individuals. Like, hey, I see you posting marketing content all the time. Like, I need help on paid. And then that leads to conversations. I would say that's a smaller portion of our book of business, but that was one of the reasons. But then also we found a lot of success with agency partnerships. So obviously, like our kind of connection is through, I think I put out a tweet, and then like one of your agency, somebody like referred you or whatever. And we
It
were
was
talking about,
Jordan, I believe his name's Jordan Ross. He runs the 8-figure coaching agency for agencies, and
yep,
th- that has been one of our biggest lead sources in the past, I would say 2 months. Like, fell into that. I engaged with him, his kind of the same thing as I engaged with people's content on Twitter and LinkedIn. And one day he just messaged me. He was like, hey man, I see you always respond and always, in the messages, talking to people, trying to help them. He was like, you need some referrals? And I was like, I'm never going to say no to referrals. Like,
yeah, right.
what's the cost? What's the commission structure like that you normally do? And we came to some terms, and I was like off to the races, thinking, maybe a couple here and there. But man, he jams us with leads, like to the point where we've even looked at starting to put somebody on that full time, just to be like, hey, here's your lead source. You're talking to them all day long.
That's really cool. That's really neat. I think I think the agency kind of like white labeling position makes a ton of sense here as well. Because agencies are just always looking for talent. People are
Mm-hmm.
like are coming and going within agencies, and like There's always a new opportunity where you kind of have to beef up the team. It's a tough game in that sense. And if you could have some like agency partnerships in place and like just some good relationships, you give some business to them, they give some business to you. Maybe there's like a commission structure in place. It really takes the burden off of BD there, big time.
I definitely I agree. It's also not always sunshine and rainbows. Like agencies are a hard thing and then they're getting squeezed from their customers, they're getting squeezed with just margins, they're also getting squeezed with what changes are happening. And I definitely experience it a lot where agencies are like, hey, our client's churning and we're trying to give them a discount, so we squeeze down with them. And it's a really great way to like generate business and create what I would say is a core foundation. Like essentially what we've used this agency as is the core foundation. So we've went and turned around and launched other businesses off the back of it because we know that servicing agencies is a really good and stable business, but there's also like there's a cap to it, and the volatility is often not the fun part because the summers are slow, beginning of the year is hot, end of
Yep.
the year is hot if you're in e-commerce.
Oh, for sure. And it's like I don't know. It's a roller coaster of a game. I always tell everybody that
Yes.
of like who wants to start an agency or like getting in the game or just newer at an ad agency specifically. There's a lot of ups and downs, and like performance sometimes sucks. You're like, shit, is a client gonna leave? And like it is definitely like a roller coaster of a business. I want to
Yes.
so my business partner and I, essentially what we're trying to do here is build an agency that provides good monthly recurring revenue and good cash flows. And then we're trying to build essentially like a holdco and diversify that a bit. We just
Love that.
purchased our first piece of real estate last week, actually. And the
What
goal
was it?
here is what was that?
What was it? Like, was it commercial, residential, or
Residential. So
okay?
residential. Um, and the goal here is trying to get, a handful of doors under management. And then I don't know, we've talked about maybe like a laundromat and trying to get some laundromats or whatever. But the
I love
goal
that.
here is to have an agency that provides cash flows to then kind of like diversify and get some real estate and some other assets that, are a bit more like reliable, I guess you could say, compared to an
Yep.
agency. So maybe speak to like your guys' approach there, because I think you mentioned buying some houses with your business partner there, and like
Yeah.
what are you guys doing like on that kind of side of things?
Yeah. Totally. Same brainwaves here. We've got a holding company that is essentially Hitchens Ventures. So
Nice.
my business partner Joshua Ruskin, he gets the name on the door in the agency. I get the name on the door for there. How we kind of split.
Love
That
that.
then holds. Actually, we just bought out a tax business. So something that we noticed along the way is business owners, no matter was it agency owner or the end client, taxes were really bad. They were spending a lot on bookkeeping, and we've got that now running, and that's called like USA Tax Solutions, and that's
Sick.
a part of it. We've also got a hiring business because we realized, hey, we can hire folks in the Philippines, folks in Latin America for much cheaper. And sometimes when agencies come to us and we get squeezed, it doesn't make sense for us to like squeeze our margin any further down. It's, hey, if you can manage and you can do something, we can hire the resources for you. Obviously, there's a management and training layer on top of that, but hey, here's the folks. We know that they're pretty good. We vet them because we either hire them in our agency in some capacity, or we've worked with them and bring them in as freelancers and in the Philippines. But that's kind of like our umbrella right there. And then we have another side where we do stuff like essentially try to buy businesses. So we've been trying to look at laundromats. The problem with laundromats, a good laundromat's going to do 300K in revenue a year. If you're really crushing it, you can maybe do 1 million, but you need folding. You need a lot of effort into it. And I don't know if I'm made out to run a full service laundromat. um, but we've got that there. We've got a couple. We've got I think 2 houses, residential houses. We realize we don't love to be tenants and dealing with somebody not paying rent, or hey, the AC broke, or
For sure.
the plumbing's not working. It's kind of draining, and it was always at the most inconvenient hours. So we're trying to push that more commercial, RV sites, car washes, laundromats, all of that. And then we've got one other little side hustle, which is, and kind of ties into some stuff that I do, is we write small kind of VC checks in some ways, or we do kind of like we pay for the marketing and then they give us a cut of revenue. It just depends. So we did an investment in a few startups. We gave them checks and said, hey, good luck. We'll help you along the way. And then we also do the model where we've got a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school and we say, hey, we'll pay for everything. We're going to own your website. We're going to own your, CRM. We're going to own your social media. We'll do everything for you, but we're going to take a third of every student that comes in. And that's worked decently well. It's definitely much harder running a small business than I could have imagined, and most of it's on the digital side.
That's so cool. I think it's like such a, I don't know, it's such like an interesting space to be in,
Mm-hmm.
and like exciting. I feel like that's such a, I don't know. I'm fascinated with that concept of a holdco. I heard Andrew Wilkinson on a podcast probably a couple of years ago now. I'm sure it. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
familiar with him. He runs Tiny. I think it's his
yeah,
holding company is like TinyCo, but
yeah.
pretty similar. He started out like years ago. I think it was mainly like web design and like that type of design work, that agency, and then he got really fascinated with with Warren Buffett and investments and everything, and then he's now a billionaire from it. And I think his
Mm-hmm.
holdco is public in Canada, I want to say.
Oh, that's
But I'm
amazing. I
just like
didn't know
so
that.
fascinated with like that concept of like an agency producing cash flows and then you using those cash flows to then get equity in other businesses or own real estate or whatever the case may be. I feel like that's a way to really generate some wealth for you and do
Yeah,
very well for yourself.
it definitely is the path. It's not as hard as most people make it out to be either. Like it's definitely not easy, but the I think the barrier to entry is so low. Like anybody can start a digital marketing agency. You gotta, do a couple courses on Google Ads. You gotta do a couple courses maybe on a website, like wherever your love is. You can turn and say, "Hey, I'm making $10,000 a month," and if you do all the work yourself, you're profiting probably, somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000 after tools and
No doubt.
whatever you have, and you get a good tax person. You can avoid a lot of the self-employment taxes and all of that comes, which allows you to take that money and if you can live well, for example, I always try $5,000 a month is like, hey, I'm trying to live off of that. I don't always do it, but live slim, and all the rest of the money goes to like reinvestment in the business, like investments in some ways. That's why my business partner lives in right now Medellin, Colombia. He's like, dude, you can do currency arbitrage out here. I'm a little less on the living out of country, but there's so many opportunities to like live small, make a lot of money, and then turn around and take that money to buy a house, to buy that, and you really don't need that much down. Like you can buy, like a residential house for 10% down, and that you can make that in a year,
Totally.
and have a cash flowing ish asset. It's definitely a risk, but out of all the risks that you could take, it's probably the lowest.
Couldn't agree more. And that's maybe that kind of dovetails into a question. Around like in like your agency business and generating cash flows on the monthly basis. So you guys do like a lot of white labeling and work with a couple different like industries and clients. If you were to, I don't know, if you were to do it all over again, if you were like consulting somebody who wanted to start an agency, what is your kind of thought or perspective around like a niche agency? Like, hey, we do LinkedIn ads for B2B SaaS companies at like $1 to $5 million, like very specific, like that's what we do, versus hey, we do like paid SEO and analytics for all of these different types of clients. Like what's kind of like your general thought process there?
The So a marketing agency pre-COVID, totally different. Today, I think it is the path that you're talking about. It's try to niche down, but the part about that is you can't go after these generic ones. Everybody and their mother is trying to do that B2B SaaS. They're trying to
No
do
doubt.
roofing. You got to find some interesting ones. For example, I ran into this gentleman, and he's only working with like construction companies that service government contracts. So they've got like cement companies, they've got like heavy
Okay.
machinery, like they drop roads, they build the roads, and I think he's doing like 20 or 30K a month and just focused on that. And majority of that work is like, hey, if you work on government contracts, you need to know how to like have a great website, show that you're legit, show, who's on your team, take great photography. There's no real marketing to that because it's all RFPs and it's all like connections of, hey,
True.
the city government needs it. And I found it so interesting because he charges, a couple grand for their website a month, goes out, does drone photography. That drone photography is used as a way to tell the customer, hey, this is a really good project. And then he actually works with the construction company, in this case, a road company that's installing, a street in a neighborhood, takes the photos, hands it to the owners, and then the owners hand it to city government that give updates to all the residents. And that's how they win their contracts, is saying, hey, we're going to help you as a city government communicate to your customers that we're doing great work and that these roads are going to last a long time. So I think finding super niches
It's really smart.
that are kind of unique is important. And you also have to be passionate about it. Like, he was a general contractor and he was like, I hate working outside, I hate working on this machinery. I know I can do some marketing for them. Let me start taking some drone photography. And then that turned into his company being like, hey, you should be our like social media person and this and that too. And he moved in the office and then started getting clients on the side, and that company was totally fine with it.
That's super smart. Yeah, that makes total sense. I've um I've heard I know one of my buddies. He runs an SEO agency. I think it's like two verticals that they work with, but essentially like their clients are in spaces where they can't actually do paid advertising because of like
Okay.
restrictions of their industry. I think it's like tobacco industry and maybe one other, maybe the alcohol industry or one other, I forget. But essentially, like they can't do paid ads, so like they have to rely on SEO, and his agency services that. So like
Yeah.
a little different but similar. I think it's really smart. I think that makes a ton of sense because then it's like you can kind of dominate that space of like, hey, here's like a
Yeah.
go-to person, and two, I would also assume like our business isn't set up like that. We have all different types of clients, and I would assume replicating your service across client would be much easier to do as opposed
A
to, an
thousand
e-commerce
percent.
client versus lead gen. A lot of like, best practices and similarities there, but like much different approach to budgets, to
Yes.
campaign structures and all of those things where it's not as easily like replicable across clients.
Not only that, you can have the same onboarding process. You can have the same email templates
Yep.
written. Like, for example, if you're going to do research for, like I have a friend that's a musician, and I was like, hey, dude, you know every musician in town. You should go run a marketing agency for bars and music venues that bring these people in, and then you market for them and do the event marketing. And it's like, you can have the onboarding, you can have the email message, you can then brand yourself really easily. Hey, I'm the expert in this one thing, let me come help you because I've helped other businesses like that. And you run a little bit into the issue of like, are you going to be able to help two bars next to each other? Maybe not. But if you find one on one side of the town and the next one,
You're good. Yeah.
nobody's going to care because they're going to go, oh, that, those are different markets. Like, we're serving country music, the other one's like, pop rock. But really, you're able to just duplicate everything. And then instead of being, in our case, we struggle to like put people with the type of accounts that we have. So if we have dental clients as an end client through an agency, they probably have one, maybe two of them. And then the next one is a roofing client. And then we've got a B2B SaaS. It's hard to put somebody on there and say, hey, the seasonality of B2B SaaS, or the seasonality of dental, like, keep communicating.
For sure.
You'll figure that out in your niche. So I think like replicating your business, especially if you're just looking for a way to get started, you don't need a massive agency that's doing 100 million. You could be doing 20, 30,000 and profiting 50% and making a great life for yourself with maybe not too much work.
That's what I love about the agency space is to that, like, especially if you have like, you and your business partner there, it's spitting out 30K a month. Like you could be doing all right for yourself there, like
Yeah.
I love that. How about, on the, like, the operation side of the business? What kind of tools do you guys use? What's kind of like your general process there?
Yeah, so we've got the gamut. So for project management, we use Basecamp. We
Ah,
try
that's
to
right.
get
Yep. Same here.
everybody to plug into it, but we have some folks that are like super into ClickUp, super into Monday. I I personally don't love those because they just get overly complicated and you've got threads and threads. The reason I love Basecamp, it's dead simple. Like anybody can jump in and it's like, hey, it's a to-do list. Um,
It's the best.
we've got other things like Slack. We've got FreshBooks for our billing and our like invoicing. But the nice thing about FreshBooks is it's got time tracking. So when you want to generate an hourly invoice, you go and pull everybody's hours, and hopefully everybody or you tag them as billable or non-billable. Yes, you import them, and then you've got your invoice broken down really nicely. Um, Slack, we've got Hrefs. We keep SEM Rush too because a lot of agencies do one or the other, so we want to be able to intermingle with them. And then we've also got services like SpyFu on, and then Google Workspace. Oh, and then we use Google Go High Level, and we give those to the clients and allow the client or the agencies to kind of say, hey, you've now got a CRM in place. You can manage leads, and as a lead comes in, you can tell us right through Go High Level that this lead needs an audit, and this is the person that goes, and then we tell them, hey, you should really buy Go High Level and use it as a generating revenue boost for you because you can sell it for $100 a month. And a lot of people just love that we can come in and tell them, hey, here's a little bit of a playbook of what you should do.
I've never even heard of it. Go high level.
Yeah, Go High Level, it's a CRM. It's decent, and the reason I say it's decent, they essentially plug in everything in there. So you've got like what a HubSpot is, um, social media management, contact management. You got websites in there, landing pages. Um, Really cool tool because then you can hand that and resell it. So if you pay, I think it's like $2.99 a month, you get unlimited amount of accounts under it. So if you've got a dentist, you can generate every single client that you have an instance for them, see how many leads come in, schedule their social media, put landing pages, charge them for uh, like web directories. Like there's so many cool things on there that just allow you to get additional revenue off your client and then also watch, are they doing good or not? Because a lot of times in an agency, the biggest hurdle is talking to that business owner and saying, hey, how's business going?
Yep.
They half the time say either good or bad, and that's in the conversation. But if you go, hey, how's business going? I saw that you got 5 more leads this month than the last month. Were those good? Should we drive you more of them? That then they go, oh, hey, and you have a really good conversation. Go High Levels, that entry conversation for it.
That's really smart. That's interesting too about like the unlimited accounts there because it's like a pretty sticky service there. Like once you get somebody to actually use the tool, it's, I would assume, pretty hard to like get them off the tool. And then like you kind of are always in contact. There's a reason to chat, even if it was just for that. Like, projects pop up and like I think that's really smart. Like there's a lot of opportunity through that connection there.
Yeah, because as an agency, you have to make yourself so sticky. So there's two ways to do that: is you either become their best friend, and you're talking to them about their kids, and you're asking them about their wives, and you take them to dinner, and you hang out with them. That's one way, and I think it's still really important, and especially if you're in a local position, for most people that's the way to go. But then there's also the other way because just showing results is not going to keep you around. At some point, they're going to say, "I think I can get better somewhere else."
Yep.
So if you've got a relationship and then you have so many things plugged in, for example, you have hosting, if you have Go High Level, if you offer them like some sort of other service that's like super sticky, it's like it's almost like a bank account of oh man, I don't want to switch my bank account from Wells Fargo to Chase, even though I hate Wells Fargo.
Just like
It's
annoying to do it. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
so that business owner is going to stay with you. And for us, a lot of people stay with us on average like 3 to 5 years. Like they just stick around because we do good work. Our results are pretty good most of the time. Occasional hiccups here and there, but we have so many service offerings to them, and then to that agency, to the end client, that it's really hard for them to say, "Hey, we're going to peel something off." And we say, okay, great, peel that off. You try to go tackle it. They try to go do it, and they realize, hey, this is a really hard thing to do. Can you just take it over again? We say, yep, totally cool.
We found some really good success with like a little webmaster service, which essentially is like website hosting and then updates on the month to month basis. Because like majority of clients don't have like a good dev team, and it's always like annoying to make an
Exactly.
update.
Do you
And
use like managed WP or something like that for it?
I believe so. I
Okay.
don't, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know the exact tool, or like our dev team handles that. So like there is a slight markup on that,
Yeah.
but it, like to your point about it being very sticky, like somebody's hosting a website, like a client's not going to like figure out how to host a website. It's not like that complicated of a process, but like then to take it from one host to another, like people just aren't going to do that. And if you have that in place and you could show like a little value there, that could easily lead to another website rebuild or paid management or like whatever. Like it kind of keeps you in the game there and keeps you engaged with that client.
Yeah, and in terms of like sales, the easiest sales, the internal sales, the IB, it's like internal business development. You can go to them every 6 months, every year, and say, hey, I have Google Analytics installed on your site. I noticed that your traffic's been really stagnating. Have you thought about doing some SEO? Have you thought about doing some
Yep.
paid ads? And it's an easy conversation. Like there's no cold call. And I've seen agencies that are only like web development shops. Like all they do is web hosting, and they have 100 to 200 websites on their like servers, and they got managed WP, and the expenses for that's maybe 500, maybe $1,000, and they are just they're charging 150 dollars a month and crushing it with all those sites. Like there's
Just
some really
recurring
easy
revenue right
ways.
there.
hmm Especially as an agency, if you're selling things that are project based, you run into the problem of not having MRR, and you're it's feast and famine. You got to really struggle. But if you can build in $10,000 of MRR that you don't have to worry about, it gives you the ability to go to that chamber of commerce meeting. It gives you the ability to go hit up the local like business brews and business meeting. So you've got time to actually invest in growing your business and not just working in your business.
So I love that, great perspective, and very well said there. We did an episode on like sticky services and how to approach that, and like that was one of the main ones, was a kind of like webmasters website hosting because of that. And the other thing that I really love about that is it's not results oriented. Like paid and SEO, there's going to be monthly reporting for the most part, or whatever the cadence is. And like if even if you're like the best person ever, great rapport, great relationship, results, like if they're not there, you're going to lose that client. Where nobody's like, hey, let me get that website hosting report. Like that's not even a thing. It's just like, oh, website's good, we're good to go. There's no questions asked. Keep things rolling as is. Love that component about that service.
Yep.
Um,
And it never, and as long as you keep the website up, very rarely do they move. The only reason that they're going to move is they get somebody in house that says that they can do the website better, and then you go, good luck.
yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
or somebody sold them a bunch of services, and you get another cook in the kitchen, and then you get pulled. But it's the churn's small. It's probably like 1-2% a month for most of it.
How about you mentioned you do some business mentoring,
hmm
and you mentioned a couple instances in here of like some conversations you've had with your buddies about like getting into the agency space. What's the business mentoring that you do? What just give like a general overview there. I'm curious to hear about that.
Yeah, so there here in San Antonio, there is San Antonio, Texas. There's a co-working space called Geekdom, and Geekdom's got a couple floors in this really great building, and they host a lot of programs. For example, one of the programs that they run is 3-day startup boot camp. So you can come in and talk about, hey, what's your idea, how to get it started, and then talk to people that have actually done business. So I go and mentor on that when somebody's just starting, and you see the gamut of businesses there. So I've seen some folks are like, hey, I have a gun store. How do I expand my gun stores? We've got food restaurant. There's obviously the tech component of I want to build a SaaS, but that's a really interesting one where they do it. And then they run pre-accelerator and accelerator programs. Essentially, like you go and pitch for $20,000 or $35,000, and I'm part of those mentoring programs to say, hey, when you're pitching an investor, if you don't have an ask and a clear path to what that money's going to go to, how do you do it? And then on the restaurant sides, it's, hey, are you thinking about, oh, you said that you're going to use onions in your dish. Are you using that through all your dishes so you can cut down costs? Like there's a few business process things that I really enjoy talking about because they're pretty similar for every single business. How do you reduce costs? How do you keep, overhead low? And then how do you, grow it? And I really love that Geekdom space because they host, like Startup Week in October. I get to go do talks about, how do you manage your finances, as a founder? How do you separate that stuff? How do you deal with just the anxiety and stress of like, hey, at any moment our business could implode because clients leave. How do you separate that? But that spot has really been one of my like favorite things in my life in the past year. I've been involved in it, but I was never mentoring. And as soon as I've started mentoring, it's really fun to talk to business owners because being a business owner is the loneliest thing in the world. You can't connect with your employees. Your families kind of understand it, but they're always worried. Like my mom always says, it looks like you're doing good, but are you sure? You sure you're good? Like,
Yeah.
are you saving? Like, she calls me media sometimes. She's like, are you saving and this and that? And, my dad's like, hey, I don't think I could have done that, but so talking to other business owners that are going through the struggle and helping them along is really good. So, there's like that Sam Parr, Hampton. It's like on the flip side of what I'm doing. It's for, I think no matter where you are in your life, you need a mentor, and like you gotta have somebody that's a station above you in life to kind of tell you the problems. And I've got a few of those folks that they've been there, they've done that. Their network's great, and they're like, oh hey, you're making a mistake. I've seen it so many times, and that's why I like to do that mentoring.
That's so cool. I did you the Hampton piece. Are you in Hampton or no people are in it?
I know people that are in it.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm I've thought about applying. I think they just raised the limits a little bit,
I
and I
I
think
saw that. Yeah.
we're just shy of like when we combine all the businesses and everything. We're just shy of everything. And I did a startup. I actually ran a podcast startup in 2020. We sold it. It was relatively small exit, but it's just it's a hard thing to like spend the money for that and then also like qualify in. I've got like an anxiety of like I'm not good enough. I think I could get in, but I just don't want to be declined. It's like it's almost like dating. When I was
Yeah,
young, I
yeah,
was like, I don't want to ask the girl. She's too hot.
yeah. That's funny. Well, if you do get in, let me know because I've been a big fan of My First Million podcast for like a long time now, and
It's an amazing
Sam seems like a
podcast.
good dude there.
Yeah, yeah, and
How?
the fact is, I'm close to Austin, so that's why I've always thought about it. I've waffled on it. I just don't go off up that far too often, and I'm like, oh man. But I think I've got a few like the gentleman that owns the buildings there in San Antonio and the actual geekdom. I've been able to talk to him about problems, and he's in a very different station in life than I think most of us are. But I've got a few folks that have exits and stuff that I think I've got a decent network of. Hey man, I'm trying to raise this money. Like, what does this sheet need to look like? What are the
Yeah,
discount rates and all of that I can, for the most part, get input that I haven't been like the Hampton one is required. It's more of just like be a really fun thing because the people in it look super interesting.
No doubt. Um, you also mentioned something there which I feel like is somewhat interesting. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But like, the anxiety of like, trying to like run your own business and, you get questions from like your parents or whatever about like, you sure you're good? Are you saving and everything? I don't know. The more like as I grow older and the more experience I get, I almost feel like, and I don't want this to sound like disrespectful at all, but I almost feel like having a job is much more risky than being an entrepreneur because
Mm-hmm.
you just told me, hey, you have an agency that's doing X number in yearly recurring revenue. Then you have some real estate assets. Then you have a tax business. And then you have a talent agency or however you want to phrase that. All of those produce revenue. So if your agency went to shit, you still have real estate, you still have this tax business, you still have. So I almost feel like in entrepreneurship, just getting multiple streams of income and figuring out the process is less risky as opposed to you have a job, the economy tanks, and then whoop, you're out on the street, no income coming in at all, and now you have to figure out a whole nother position.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a little more risky in a sense. It might sound counterintuitive there, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit riskier in that sense.
I agree. So like the risk of sounding an asshole is when I started my like entrepreneurship journey, I had a job, and I really believe everybody that's starting some sort of business needs to have a job or a base salary that's supporting them so they can go take that risk.
Agreed.
But the job, and this is no longer like corporate, like welfare state where our parents would stay at a job for 30 years, get a pension, and be happy.
Yep.
This is a much more cutthroat environment where no matter what, you're not safe. No matter if you're performing, if you're needed, there's very few times where you are the person that gets hit by the bus and the business goes under. So I do think that's the case. I tell a lot of people, like like people that bake bread or cookies, I'm like, hey, go sell at the farmers market. You don't do anything Saturday. You complain about not wanting to go out. Like go sell your sourdough at the farmers market, and you could people at the farmers market, man, some of them make 2-3K in a day if they make enough stuff. And maybe at some point it turns into business. I'm mentoring this gentleman. He's a grandfather, and his wife's a grandmother, obviously, but they have a graham cracker business, and they were going to farmers markets, and over time people kept calling them and saying, hey, I want your cookies, like, can you make them? They've made that a full-time job, and now they're going through the geekdom programs to go try to make that a full-time business. And
Nice.
compete with like like the Tiff's treats and all of like the graham crackers of the worlds. And I was like, sometimes you can luck into that stuff, and obviously a business has its ups and downs, but overall I do think it is less risky in a lot of ways.
Totally. And extremely rewarding and like learning so many different things and just being resourceful of like figuring out, I don't know,
Yeah, and then
taxes, fine, like
you can
anything.
you can give back. Like I think the coolest thing a lot of these businesses get to do, it's like, oh hey, I sponsored, like I'm trying to sponsor stuff in my kid's school, and I'm like, I don't really want the recognition, but I would love to say, hey, like everybody got to go do this fun thing because I've got a successful business, and you guys need to go enjoy it too. Like you
Totally.
get to share in that. Like I've got friends who like, hey, I'm in a bad spot. I'm like, hey, I've got a business. What are you good at? Like, can I get you a job? I need you to work hard, and I need you to not like make me look dumb, but let me get you a job, and let's turn your life around. And while you're doing that, go do something on the side. I don't care. As long as it doesn't interfere, I encourage it.
Love that. How about how about just in general here, like maybe a little bit on the business side, or it could even how about marketing side wise? What are you kind of excited about in the future here? whether that's like a new service, whether that's AI and some of these AI tools. Like, do you have anything that you're kind of like, pumped about in the marketing space, digital space? Just, I know it's pretty open ended there, but anything that comes to
No,
mind?
it's a good question. So right now the internet and marketing is changing fundamentally. Like everything is shifting towards AI. I am a little skeptical on the AI, just because you can ask it some really funny questions like what's one plus one, and the answer they'll tell you is three because one human and another human is equals a baby, and it's like that's not what I meant, AI. But we're integrating a lot of that into that. So one of the companies that we actually have been investing in is called like Sage SEO, and they do SEO writing and research and data input to you know process all the keywords and say what you should be doing against your competitors. We integrated that into our businesses to reduce costs and do that. But then there's also other AI, like for example, we're feeding it all the Google Ads data and saying, hey, if the weather is raining, does the business have a downward decline? And a lot of times there's some interesting things that ChatGPT or Gemini will do. So AI, I think, is a really interesting one for me. It's not just about the writing though, where everybody thinks it's just a chatbot. It's how can you do some cool things like the weather one. Like I would love to do, when it hails, campaigns about hail turn on in a specific location. You need AI to process that, and then you need all this other stuff because Google is actively trying to kill agencies. I feel like they're changing how match types work. They're changing how you even rank on Google. They're a monopoly. They were monopoly in court. So there's all these headwinds that I'm really excited about this change, because when there is change, there's opportunity to do something. So when Twitter, got purchased, Mastodon became huge. That was like a two-person team. The same thing here is, as all this shifts, you need to think about AI in an agency perspective of how can you go optimize these businesses and tell them they need to be adopting AI. But how does a mechanic do that? Like maybe they have a chat bot, maybe they have AI support phone calls. I'm not sure, but I'm really excited of seeing the AI beyond just the little text box.
No doubt. And I think that's something that's like really cool about running an agency is like you have the ability to kind of like shift your service offering, pretty quickly there
Mm.
and like
And
figure
you have
something
to.
else out and offer it. The other thing that I'll say on the AI thing, I couldn't agree more on Google. Even if it's not even true, I just think the perception that like search results are getting worse, like that brand is out there and that reputation's out there. And I think people are potentially looking for other solutions. I know like a lot of people in like I don't know, a little bit more like techie entrepreneurs are like, I only do all my searches through ChatGPT. Like I'm definitely not at that point now. I kind of cross compare, but I think um, I think there'll be opportunity for agencies in that space. Perplexity just announced in Q4 they're going to roll out an ad platform where you're going to be able to. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm assuming you're going to be able to like buy keywords, pretty similar to Google. But like I'm assuming we're going to be in a space where all of these LLMs are going to offer keyword buying opportunities, and then you don't have to rely on just Google as the sole kind of like arbiter of website traffic. Maybe you have an
Yeah.
allocation where it's like, historically it's been like 80, 90% Google, maybe 10, 20% Bing. Maybe we shift to a world where it's like 25% Google, 25% Perplexity, 25% ChatGPT or whatever. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there potentially for some text-based ads in LLMs eventually.
I'm really hopeful because I I I don't know what AI is going to do, because right now there is no ads. Like it's a subscription model, ad free, and truthfully, advertisement has become less popular. Like
No
I
doubt.
just I had a friend that told me that his kids don't know what ads are. He called them vacation TV because he didn't know what an ad was, because they watch Netflix and they watch Disney Plus, and it's like, yeah, they don't know what a TV ad is.
Could
I
totally see
fast
that.
forward
Yeah.
through them,
Yeah.
and I don't think we're going to see that the third degree effect of it till, yeah, like another 10, 15 years from now, because like, and I know you said chat GPT is more techy and stuff, but for example, my wife, obviously she's married to me. She sees me all use all this stuff. The other day, she went into the pantry and the fridge, went to ChatGPT, told him all the ingredients, and made us a dish,
That's
dinner with
sick.
it. And I was super proud, but also like it was like oh my gosh, like more and more people are using this, and she goes and tells her friends, and her friends are going to do the same thing. And I think
No doubt.
the push of it is this is going to become much more mainstream, and it's taking a little bit longer because it is a paradigm shift for the internet.
No doubt. Dude, I feel like we could talk for like hours here. I do got to run and wrap this up here. I have like so many more thoughts on that topic, but before we and would love for you to come back on the show at some point here. Before we wrap, who maybe just like give some plugs, where to send people, website, socials, where you active on, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to follow my antics, like Twitter's the place. I'm Leon Hitchens, and LinkedIn. That's the two places I'm really active. And, if anybody needs some marketing help, ruskinconsulting.com. And if you need some tax stuff, you can go to usataxsolution.com. Those are the kind of spots that I would head.
Nice, nice. All right, cool. I'll make sure to get those linked in the show notes here, so people have those URLs. But
I appreciate it.
uh, awesome conversation. I thought this was really cool. I love the Holdco stuff and just the chat in general. So really
I'll
appreciate you
send
joining the
you
show here.
another link. There's a hold cold course from somebody that I know. His name's Michael Girdley. You may have seen him on Twitter, and
I
he
think
has a
so.
really good Holdco course about how to build it and everything. It's not too expensive, and he's actually local to San Antonio, so
Nice.
I'll give you the link for that.
All right, cool. Much appreciated there. And yeah, thanks again for joining. Really appreciate it.
No problem. This was fun.